Shalom Mishpacha, welcome back to my channel. I am Rabbi Esther and I'm going to launch the first episode of our Tending Your Garden Shevat Wellness and Health and Well-Being series. Welcome to my little corner on the internet for meaningful, purposeful and progressive Jewish content where we make our lives beautiful through Torah and mitzvot. Pull up a chair and get comfy and get yourself a hot drink like my cup of tea. So as I announced in the introductory video, we're going to be talking about 5 core topics throughout the month of Shevat. Reflect, move, eat, rest, and play. Reflect will look at prayer and meditation, move at exercise and fitness, eat at food and feasting, rest at restoration and Shabbat, and play at art, craft, and creativity. And I really encourage you to see the introductory video that I've made about this series. It gives a framing for what we're going to do here during the month of Shabbat. This video is going to be talking about reflect, prayer and meditation. And for sure, this is not the first time I've made content about this. I'm going to link to some videos that I've made in previous years, especially a video I made around the high holidays a number of years ago about how to build your own prayer practice. And that video is still very useful. And I'm also going to link to a bunch of more theological videos that will help you think through these questions of, do I believe in God or do I not believe in God? And what does that look like? And what does prayer look like? And I would like to start with an overarching teaching from Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, which is a tractate from the Mishnah. It's a short tractate of the Mishnah, 2,000-year-old text, more or less. It's filled with pithy and wise teachings and sayings from different rabbis. And I really like this saying from chapter 4 from Ben Zoma. Ben Zoma Omer, Ezehu Chacham, Halomed Mikol Adam. Ben Zoma says, who is wise? One who learns from all people. Ezehu Gibor, Hakovesh et Yitzro. And who is strong? One who conquers his inclination. Ezehu Ashir, Hasameach Bechelko. And who is wealthy? One who rejoices in their lot. Ezehu Mechubad. And who is honored? Umechabed et briot, one who brings honor to all human creatures. Now the original quote is much longer because it gives some scriptural proofs as well. Basically, this provides us with like a 4-part philosophy for wellness and growth and self-improvement. It focuses on wisdom, it focuses on strength, it focuses on contentment, and it focuses on respect. Jewish metaphysical psychology teaches that we as humans have a dual nature, a Yetzer HaTov, an inclination towards goodness, and a Yetzer Hara, an inclination towards evil. And of course, it's much more complicated than that because we actually need the Yetzer Hara, the inclination for evil or self-preservation, if you want to translate it a little bit more expansively, in order to get ahead in the world. And Judaism doesn't expect us to extinguish the Yetzer Hara. It expects us to bridle it, to guide it, and to shape it, just like we cultivate the midot, the characteristics for the Yetzer HaTov, the good inclination. And so I just want to say right out of the gate, it's really okay to struggle with this. All of this stuff is really hard, and self-care, self-improvement, self-love, self-growth, however you want to frame it, is not supposed to be about toxic positivity. And I'm going to encourage all of us to see ourselves through compassionate and loving eyes as we embark on this journey together. Specifically, talking about reflect, prayer and meditation, there are 2 central challenges that we face. A challenge of thinking and a challenge of doing. The thinking part is an invitation for you to explore what your metaphysical or philosophical worldview is. What is your theological or your metaphysical starting point? Do you believe in God? Do you not believe in God? What does that God idea look like to you? If you don't believe in God, what do you value about a non-theistic spiritual practice that can still bring you benefit? If you do believe in God, then how would you describe that relationship and how do you want to impact that relationship positively if you have had past experiences with religion that have been pretty damaging, then how can you heal from that trauma, or at least understand your own triggers and sensitivities? And if you're new to religious practice altogether, then how can you ease yourself in with gentleness and care? And for some folks, if you want to leave a religious practice, how can you leave it while honoring yourself and taking care of yourself? So just to kind of ask yourself those questions, where you're at will help us meet the challenge of thinking before we meet the challenge of doing. There are a few core ideas I want to talk about when it comes to developing a practice of reflection. One is honesty. Spiritual growth is great, but don't force yourself to affirm things you cannot affirm. 2 is openness. Allow yourself to be surprised by your own inner depth. And 3 is curiosity. Be curious about your own practice and the practices of others and think outside of the box. What does this look like in practice? It may look like you investigating a Jewish practice you hadn't had before, or investigating a non-Jewish practice and compare notes about what you can learn from that practice. Or it may be a process of discernment for yourself in what you think you need in your spiritual journey at this time. I'm going to bring 3 texts from Psalms, and I chose Psalms because not only are they at the heart of Jewish prayer and at the heart of our liturgy, and I chose Psalms that you can all find in the prayer book so that when you come across them in the context of a synagogue service, you can think, aha, there's a deeper way to think about this. The guiding principles for these 3 Psalms are joy, sorrow, and perspective. We're going to talk about the gratitude practice in a minute, but I fundamentally believe that you cannot have a gratitude practice if you do not create space for lament. Sorrow and acknowledging sorrow is part of building a gratitude practice. First text from Psalm 100 is Mizmor LeTodah, a psalm of praise. Hariu l'Adonai, kol haaretz, raise a shout for the eternal, all the earth. Ivdu et Adonai b'simcha, uva'u lefanav biranana. Worship the eternal in gladness. Come into God's presence with shouts of joy. So this is that first leg in our exploration of joy, perspective, and sorrow, because joy can be a foundational experience and should be a foundational experience for any spiritual practice. Think clearly and consciously about the things about your spiritual practice that give you joy. What are the things that light up your life? The second psalm is Psalm 121. Shir la malot esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. A song for ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. My help comes from the eternal, the creator of heaven and earth. The mountains are a visual aid that draw our eyes, quite literally in this case, upwards and allow us to reflect on the bigger perspective. So it's all about perspective. It's about being able to take a step back, reflect, see the greater whole, and place yourself inside of that greater whole. If you would expand the puzzle of our view, what are the pieces in your life that you've been missing? What is something that you would like to take a step back from, free yourself from those constraints, and be able to say, you know what? This is the bigger picture. The last psalm I want to bring is about sorrow. It's from Psalm 30, and I chose Psalm 30 because it's in the traditional prayer book. So it's very easy for you to stumble across in the Siddur if you're in services. And it goes through a range of different emotions. Psalm 27 does this too, which we read around the high holidays. But it's really illustrative of kind of the human condition. And it talks about fear and sorrow and being desolate, being far from God and far from a place of safety and finding your way back. Now, I just want to make clear that sometimes you can't find your way back. You don't have to move into kind of a redemption arc of the psalm. You can stay with the dark parts of the psalm and meditate on those dark parts. But the conclusion of the psalm is really beautiful, and you can place the emphasis on the first clause versus the second clause and see which one resonates with you. Afachta mispedei lamachol li pitachta sakel vat azreini simcha. You turned my lament into dancing. You undid my sackcloth and girded me with joy. I'm going to encourage you to see any spiritual practice, whether it's secular or spiritual or religious, as an archeology of the soul. The fundamental act of turning inwards and delving deeper into yourself is a kind of excavation where you penetrate deeper layers and deeper layers and deeper layers. Now, I briefly want to talk about 3 important pitfalls that you can find, especially in online culture and on the internet, where there is a lot of kind of not so great information about spiritual practice. One is superstition. There's a difference between religion and superstition, and the magical thinking that lies at the basis of superstition can be very, very harmful because you can set yourself up for failure or disappointment. I do think that we can be attentive to the miracles of everyday living and appreciate them. I am not so sure that I would be happy to peddle miracles on the internet. So if a promise is being made, it's probably too good to be true. Just prime your mind to be attentive that this could be actually superstition rather than a thoughtful and legitimate and safe spiritual path. Out of that, concern around superstition is the idea of manifesting, which I see pop up in social media all the time, and I'm really not here for it. And manifesting, as Psychology Today magazine defines it, is the idea that through the power of belief, we can effectively think a goal into becoming reality. It's a form of magical thinking, or the need to believe that one's hopes and desires can have an effect on how the world turns. There is so much deep theology to this fallacy, this metaphysical fallacy of manifesting. But because the language of manifesting sounds kind of secular and empowering, I think it's very easy for people who are deeply critical of organized religion, as you should be, there's a lot wrong with organized religion, to fall into the trap of manifesting. There's an alternative to manifesting that is not problematic, and that's affirmations. Sticking affirmations on your bathroom mirror to help you kind of set your intention for the day, that's great. Where things cross over into being problematic is if you think that those affirmations can manifest new realities into being apart from what you can do with your own 2 hands. And then the third pitfall is actually spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing is a concept created by Buddhist teacher and psychotherapist John Welwood in the 20th century, and this is a pretty good definition of it. Spiritual bypassing refers to the act of using spiritual beliefs or practices to avoid confronting and processing difficult emotions, psychological wounds, or unresolved personal issues, essentially using spirituality as a way to sidestep facing painful realities rather than as a tool for deeper healing and growth. It often involves excessively focusing on positive thinking to the point of suppressing negative emotions like anger, sadness, or grief. You can spiritually bypass yourself, or you can be spiritually bypassed by others. The dark side and the danger of a gratitude practice is that you can fall into the trap of spiritual bypassing. And that is why I think the place for lament is so important. Here is the practicum that I'm going to give you guys. We've studied our text, we've outlined core principles, and talked about some pitfalls. And of course, I will link resources in the show notes below to read more. 1. Create some rituals for waking and sleeping. Jewishly, we might say modeh or moda or modet ani upon waking, which you can find in every prayer book, or the Shema at night before you close your eyes. You can, of course, find all kinds of alternatives that convey the fundamental practice of rising with gratitude and resting with forgiveness, which is the overarching theme of this practice. The second practice you could engage in is a gratitude journal. And talking about joy and sorrow, I would also encourage you to intersperse listing the things you're grateful for with the things that you find challenging. You could say, there are 3 things or 2 things that I'm struggling with today, and then you list those few things. And here are 5 things that I'm grateful for. 3 is guided meditation and stillness. There are tons of meditation apps, including great apps like Headspace, but you can also just use a chime or a timer and light a candle and stare into the flame and count in cycles from 1 to 10 and over again for a minute, and then see if the minute turns into 5 minutes. Meditation is actually really hard, and a minute is a long time to be still, and 5 minutes feels like eternity. So be gentle with yourself as you sit in meditation. Do not be afraid of your own thoughts. There is no such thing as an intrusive thought in meditation, because every thought can be perceived non-judgmentally, and you just recognize the thought and file it away. Number 4, I really like this one, and I really like this one in the Jewish tradition, which is the act of blessing. The act of blessing either yourself or others through the spoken or the written word. Now, parents who celebrate Shabbat might recognize this from the Shabbat meal, where we bless our children. And in my family, we have a practice where we bless our children and we list something positive that they have done or achieved during the week. And it's a real wonderful moment where their face kind of lights up, and we give them a hug and we kiss the top of their heads, and it's really lovely. But you don't have to stop blessing people just because they're adults. Adults can bless each other at the Shabbat table or at other occasions. And if blessing someone feels hard in the moment through a verbal communication, you can do it in writing. Send them a card, leave them a note, send them a text message. I bless you with fortitude or patience or rest or relaxation or joy or love. Or I bless you with the strength to overcome this difficult thing that I know that you're dealing with. And you may or may not believe whether you pull down blessings from the divine, but setting that sacred intention where you freely and abundantly give a gift of care and intentionality to another human being is already transformative. And then 5, the last one, is kind of an advanced exercise. I define my relationship with God as non-interventionist but relational. Speaking from my own personal experience, I experience God as a source that I can tap into in my prayer life, but I don't think God is going to give me a parking spot. But I do believe that the architecture of our universe is fundamentally loving, and that I can turn my heart towards that universe in love and turn towards God in love and extract from my encounter with the divine through prayer, meditation, song, art, movement, whatever it is, and draw onto that wellspring of love. Out of that comes an ability for me to be able to pray for things that I don't consider interventionist, but that go back to that metaphor of the archeology of the soul. Use my prayers to excavate things in myself that I want to reach. Patience, forbearance, compassion, love, forgiveness. And I ask for God to actualize those things in me. I know that I have them inside of me, but sometimes I can't reach them, and I do believe that God can help me reach them. So that isn't asking for external intervention, it's praying for internal transformation. Having said that, during moments when I struggle, I bring my struggles to God, because even the act of surrendering those things to God help me externalize my own struggle and feel less alone in that struggle, because I'm making God my partner in that struggle. So, having explained the system, I'm going to invite you as the last exercise to bring your needs, desires, worries, and joys to God and or the universe. And you can do this through journaling, or you can do this through verbalization. Go to a quiet place in yourself and say this in a whispered breath, and see what that does for you. You don't have to do it by affirming things you can't believe. You can do it in whatever way you want. You can even say, in the ocean of the universe, I bring the drops of my tears. You are not expecting the ocean to respond, but you are adding your tears to the ocean of the universe. So friends, that was my first video in this Shevat series. I hope you found this useful. And of course, please check out the other videos I've made on this topic in previous years. And you're going to see me for the next topic, which is move. And I'm excited for that one because it's going to involve a little bit of story time about how I am moving my body these days. And it will be quite personal. Maybe you guys are into that, but it will be a fun one. If you like what I do, leave a little love and share the love, and I will see you in the next one. Shalom uvracha, with peace and blessings from my bite to your bite. Bye.